Let's say, hypothetically, that you are a major podcaster who has achieved over 1 billion plays across multiple platforms. For the sake of argument, let's assume that you have a large enough fan base that even if just 10% of your audience believes in your word, that would be millions of people. In fact, other people with huge followings support your views and hold you in high regard. Imagine being Joe Rogan. If you have watched Joe Rogan over the last year, then you have definitely been through an experience.
Ha!
But we don't waste time on this channel, so let's go ahead and get into the reason why I'm even writing the script and making the video. If you were to just scroll down the JRE subreddit, you will see people dunking him like donuts. But why?
If politicians' money was all based on a percentage of the gross profits of the neighborhood they control, they'd have a completely different way of dealing with people.
There are many more clips. This was just the latest one uploaded to his own subreddit, where his own viewers are butt blasting his own podcast, and sometimes it's his own producer.
A friend of mine went, and he's a white guy, and he went and they told him that they couldn't give it to him because of his age and his body mass, because he's white, but if he was Hispanic or black, they would be able to give it to him. Fact check. No policy denies white people antibody treatment, Texas Health Department says. Well, I don't know. I mean, this might be covering up for some fucking horseshit.
Or it's not, but...
Although these are opinions that belong in a trash can next to a box of Dominoes, they aren't exactly hurting anyone. Well, at least physically. I can't say that about mentally. But what happens when you sprout absolute shite onto your podcast where at least 1 million people will hear what you and your guest have to say and think? Well, that's a walk of art, isn't it, bruv? Luckily for us, we do not have to look too far, as we can see one of the worst examples of Joe Rogan being Jogan in his interview with Dr. Peter McCullough. At best, Joe Rogan passively goes on with debunkable trash arguments, and at worst, actively distributes misinformation that is so beyond parody that the Onion is now declaring bankruptcy.
My concern is that corporations, their goal is to continually make more money. And the best way to do that is to continue to encourage people to be vaccinated and to create new vaccines.
This is a common talking point used by those who want to discredit the vaccine by saying it's a money pit used by Big Pharma to rake in billions of dollars. So if you are Joe Rogan, a sure way to fight against Big Pharma's grasp on COVID-19 treatment is to order copious amounts of monoclonal antibodies, which we do know does work to some extent, which is largely pushed out by Regeneron, which is part of, well, I'll give you 5 seconds to guess. Alright, time is up. If you guess that Regeneron is part of Big Pharma, then you're winner. While it is true that companies like Pfizer have seen a spike in revenue, a tremendous amount, Regeneron has also doubled its company earnings from $3.86 billion in 2020 to a little over $8 billion in 2021. Essentially, Joe Rogan is the type of guy that goes to the local Coca-Cola center, tells them to screw off because the soft drink industry is too woke, and then drives to the local gas station to buy a Diet Mountain Dew. Absolutely disgusting. But to get back on track here, what about the doctor that I mentioned a moment ago? Let's see what he has to say about the vaccines.
Well, you know, none of the vaccines are FDA approved.
Right.
Even Pfizer's not FDA approved. That was a false talking point.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
So he is referring to and denying that the FDA approved the Pfizer vaccine on August 23rd of this year. This is obviously false, but he continues to say it is not a real FDA approval because it did not go through the proper procedures and does not have any warning labels about the side effects. Joe Rogan absorbs this obvious falsehood, does not object, but agrees to this insane misinformation. You can go directly on the FDA website where you can see the Pfizer vaccine granted FDA approval. Within the document, you can publicly view the approval letter, regulatory action summaries, side effects including clearing up anything with infertility in women, and the package insert, which makes it pretty weird when he states,
They have to actually have a approved package insert. They have to commit to post-marketing studies on myocarditis. They have to give safety warnings on pregnancy. They're not there yet. So no product is approved in the United States.
and of course, this is met with no resistance from Rogan. Now, when I was an intern at NPR, we would always screen and research our interview topic, no matter who it was, even if he or she is a doctor. So let's go on the interwebs and let's see what we find here. After doing an initial search of Dr. Peter McCullough on DuckDuckGo, I came across his Wikipedia page, where it states he was Vice Chief of Internal Medicine at Baylor University Medical Center, among other things. But I want to find out why he is no longer the Vice Chief. And oh boy did I find out. Using my 200 IQ level search engine skills, I was able to find out some alarming details in a short amount of time. An example is that he was fired and sued by his former workplace for continuing to attach himself to the company's brand in media and speech appearances, in my opinion, to increase his legitimacy even after being canned. But why would he need to do this? Well, McCullough is part of another organization called the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, or AAPS for short. Now, the AAPS is a politically conservative nonprofit that has promoted great ideas such as AIDS denialism, stating abortion leads to breast cancer, and my personal favorite, that being homosexual reduces your life expectancy by 8 to 20 years. These claims are outlandish and have been debunked by actual health experts from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization, which has become a trigger word to conservatives. These debunks are living rent-free in their head so much that the AAPS takes a stand against, quote, sham peer reviews on their website. Side note, they are also in favor of private health care to the point where they do not just want to kill any talk of universal health care, they do not even want Obamacare, which is mostly a right-wing healthcare plan created in the 1990s. So this is probably why the doctor Joe Rogan has on is not in favor of publicly funded vaccination. So not only does Peter McCullough himself push out information that can easily be debunked in under 5 minutes, the entire organization, which he is a part of, is known to push out wild misinformation. It is so wild that not even Joe Rogan himself can believe all of it after reflecting.
And he was saying that if you have COVID once, you can't catch it again. And I was like, God, I think I know people that have caught it more than once. I've heard of people that caught it more than once.
At this point, the damage has already been done. If you look at the comments for this podcast, people are eating it up and asking for seconds. This means you have hundreds of thousands of people doing their, quote, own research and learning from a trusted doctor. A doctor who has been fact-checked directly and debunked indirectly through actual organizations in America and in countries like Denmark. That shows about 2 cases of myocarditis after the vaccine with a sample of 5 million people, meaning you have a 0.002% chance of getting mild myocarditis, which is not long-lasting with serious implications. Way better than the 2% death rate from COVID in the United States. Let's say the entire United States population of an estimated 333 million people contracted COVID. With the 2% death rate, that would approximately kill 6 million people, or the equivalent of the United States being engaged in 15 World War IIs. But let's get back to the fact that Joe Rogan himself promotes ivermectin, which is not FDA approved at all, while also talking about monoclonal antibodies, which has emergency use authorization, which they were denouncing earlier, which is not a substitute of the vaccine and is becoming increasingly more worthless every day due to new variants. And I am sure this video will be outdated quickly, as the new AstraZeneca antibody treatment has been approved for emergency use to prevent COVID, as the science can change very quickly. However, getting these antibodies may be a challenge in the future. This does not excuse Joe Rogan for being a host of widespread conspiracy and quack doctors who say,
There should never be an official on TV that says the vaccines are safe and effective, take them.
So what type of people are believing the anti-vax rhetoric, and what are the consequences? We know, at least in the United States, if you identify as a Republican, you are more likely to be unvaccinated. We also know that unvaccinated people who contract COVID are roughly 14 times more likely to die. Whereas if you are fully vaccinated, you are less likely to even be admitted to the hospital. Across 32 states, the fully vaccinated population are hospitalized at a rate under 1%. The last myth that I want to touch on before this video gets too long is when people like Joe Rogan tell you, if you are young and healthy, then you do not need to worry at all. The key phrase here being less likely. Never mind the fact that you are serving as a host to spread the disease to other people who the virus will kill. How about this man right here? Most people would say he is in pretty good shape. This is kickboxing world champion Frederick Sinatra, who refused vaccines, oxygen from the hospital, and left because he thought the virus was a joke. Unfortunately, the joke was not being presented by George Carlin, but by Amy Schumer. The healthy world champion athlete would die from COVID a few days later of cardiac arrest. If you do not die, you could end up like championship-winning pro hockey player Josh Archibald, who is now out indefinitely after contracting COVID-19 in the summer, which developed into myocarditis, which can lead to cardiac arrest. These are two anecdotes, sure, but if COVID can cut through two championship-winning athletes, killing one and potentially ruining the other's career, your Planet Fitness membership, which I may add does not even include free weights at every location, will not be a substitute for the vaccine. If you still do not believe me, maybe you will believe this guy.
Some people aren't taking it. The ones that get very sick and go to the hospital are the ones that don't take the vaccine. But it's still their choice. And if you take the vaccine, you're protected. Look, the results of the vaccine are very good. And if you do get it, it's a very minor form. People aren't dying when they take the vaccine.
Yeah. Joe Rogan is effectively platforming more misinformation than Donald Trump, which I can't give him too much credit because, Trump kind of got the whole thing started to begin with. Anyways, to wrap things up, Joe Rogan has become a vector of wild misinformation. He has a huge audience, and without a doubt, some of his fans follow his advice. Some of them have either died or contracted COVID with potentially long-lasting effects. Ironically, myocarditis being one of them. This new Joe Rogan is worse than you could possibly imagine. If you know a Rogan fan who repeats his talking points, I would like to read it in the comment section. If you found this video interesting at all, give it a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more half-decent commentary. If you are anti-vax yourself, feel free to call me an idiot down below. I will see you guys next time.